In high school, I was lucky to have a teacher that saw that the normal high school has boundaries. And the boundaries define education as within the school, within the classes, within the books, within the teachers. But every once in a while, a good teacher spots a student and gets them outside of the school to maybe another school, to a university, to a business. And I got to go down to a business and program a computer. Back when we never thought we'd see a computer in our lives. I told my father that I was going to own a 4K mini computer, a Data General Nova, someday. Because it was the most beautiful computer. The architecture matched the chips it was made out of. The wiring was simple. You didn't have to design the computer. You just hooked things together. And I was going to own one. He said it cost as much as a house. And I was stunned because I was a young student. And I said, well, I'm going to live in an apartment. I'd rather have a computer than a house. Well, at Hewlett-Packard, they heard that I was a hot-shot computer designer. So they called me in and interviewed me and hired me as a designer designing these calculators, even though I didn't even have a college degree. So this is one of the great things when you can see beyond, see the person that can do a job, that has the right thinking, and can hire them and not force them to have certain credentials and proof of it. Well, I loved Hewlett-Packard. It was a great company to be an engineer in. Back then, it was different than now. It was started by engineers, infiltrated with engineers throughout the management. We built the tools that engineers used, and engineers were my favorite people in the world. Engineers worked with things that worked or things that didn't work. You had to do a lot of complicated, difficult calculations, and it either worked or it didn't work. So truth. You had to hit truth. You had to hit things that were factual. I saw some older engineers there. And I said, oh my gosh, this is a company. You don't have to move up into management. You can actually be an engineer for your whole life. And so it became my goal that I would work at Hewlett-Packard as an engineer for my entire life because I loved building things. I loved building technical things. I loved designing them. I loved writing programs. I was back at Hewlett-Packard, and although I did electronics all day at Hewlett-Packard, when I came home and ate my dinner and watched Star Trek, then my life was electronics. I loved electronics. I was one of those technical geeks that would probably never know how to find a girlfriend or get married, so I had a lot of free time, and I did side projects at night. And these side projects were just going to be on a perfect little linear course that led up to the early Apple computers. First, I believed so much in humor, I started the first joke machine, dial-a-joke, in the San Francisco area. I was in a bowling alley one day, and I saw something that would change my life forever. Pong. A little game running on a little TV set in an arcade housing. And oh my God, I just stared at it. I said, who would have ever thought you could actually use a television to put a game on it? I started thinking in my head, how do you do that? And I started realizing that I could do it. Well, I had no money, so everything that I built, everything that I got in those days, pretty much I had to build myself. I went home, started designing and designing. I knew television signals in the old days, and I knew chips, and I designed a Pong and built it up with about 28 chips, and I took it into work and showed it off. And the key to it was I had a television at home. So my output device was free. The most expensive part of it I already owned. Steve Jobs came back from college, and he saw this Pong game, and I told him, Atari is changing the world. They're bringing arcade games, fun games that people can play are going to be electronic on televisions. Well, Atari was in the town I live in right now, Los Gatos, California. Steve Jobs goes down there, meets the top people, and gets hired right away. So he's working right at this hot new company that's changing the world, Atari. And after a short time, Steve came to me. They wanted to hire me, and I said, no, I'm working at Hewlett-Packard for all my life. And then Steve came to me, and he said, they want a game designed, and you could design it. A single-player Pong game. It's called Breakout. And I said, oh my God, I could design a game that people are going to play and enjoy. I mean, I love to bring enjoyment to anybody in life. That's my biggest thing ever. I get to design it, of course. And Steve said, well, there's a little hitch. You have to do it in 4 days. And games were not software back then. It was hardware. How you hooked up the wires made little pulses on the wires that told your TV set to turn on little white dots at the right time. It was very difficult. I didn't think I could do it, but we stayed up 4 days and nights. We both got the sleeping sickness, mononucleosis, and we delivered a working breakout game to Atari for money. So Steve was he got the contract. And so that was the second thing that we did together. I called Steve Jobs over one day, and I was able to type some numbers on the keyboard, and blue dots and yellow dots popped up on my TV screen. And boy, we were shaking. I mean, our hair was standing up on our arms. We knew this was a eureka moment. We knew we had a hot product with color. Nobody ever expected color in small computers. This fellow Jeff Raskin joined us, and it was probably a very important time for everyone in this room. Jeff Raskin came by the garage and talked to Steve and I about how you can build a bunch of chips into a computer. And any person who knows how computers work can use that computer and get the functionality out of it. But you can put a lot of work into it in software and other ways and make the computer so that somebody who knows nothing about computers could come up and they can use it also, if you put a lot of your own work into it. I treat this as the human versus the technology. Which is more important? When the human is more important, you modify the technology with your work to make it work the human ways, the ways that are natural and intuitive to a human. When the technology is more important, you have a lot of features there, but the human has to modify their ways to figure out how to use you. And every product has a mixture of human and technology, but Jeff Raskin took us on this humanist approach. He had been a professor at universities teaching classical piano and that sort of thing, and he's the one that took Steve and I down to Xerox PARC Center in Palo Alto, where they had a machine they were building that had mouses and windows on a screen. And it was so impressive, but they were going to sell it for $50,000. Now, Steve said, you know what? We got people like Woz who just take these things that cost $50,000 and figure out a way to build them for $2,000 or $1,000. So Apple's the company that will bring this technology to the masses. And we started a program called the Lisa. And along with Jeff Raskin's ideas that a computer that is good is usable by a newcomer as well as a computer expert, we brought people in to play with this device we were constructing on a table, and we said, figure out what you can do with it. And they knew nothing about computers. Children, spouses, students, teachers, whomever.